Kia ora tātou, good morning everyone, and welcome back. We will resume the hearing, and the first submitter for today is Mr. Will Foley, who I see sitting over the back there. So good morning, Will. And good morning, welcome. It's a fairly straightforward process, 10 minutes. I'll let you know when you have 2 minutes remaining. If you wish us to ask you questions, please consider that in your presentation. So the whole thing happens within the 10 minutes. And so good morning, and the floor is yours. Push the button on the front there. There you go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And firstly, I'd like to thank the councillors for this opportunity, giving me the opportunity to hear my submission today. I'd like to emphasise my support for the Regional Council to invest up to $80 million required to fund the Ruataniwha Water Scheme. This is not simply about a financial return to the Council or to the investors. The returns are broader and wider reaching than that, and have the ability to benefit a large part of Hawke's Bay region, not just Central Hawke's Bay. I must declare, while my family group currently have farms in the irrigation zone, under our current succession plan, I will not own or manage those farms that the water will arrive to the gate when it does, if planned. I was born in Waipakarau and grew up on the family farm at Takapau, where I still farm today. As far back as I can remember, the Takapau village had the following services or businesses that no longer exist: a vehicle workshop, garage, a fuel stop, a bookshop, a post office, a dairy, a Wrightson's Farm Supplies grocery store, tea rooms cafe, a pub, a hairdresser, and a butcher shop. These are all gone, and we're left with a Foursquare and a fish and chip shop. While there are probably many reasons for this change, I feel the downturn in agriculture since the 80s have been the main cause. I note the opposite occurring to many towns, small towns down in the South Island, largely driven by agricultural industry, whether it be grapes, orchards, dairy or arable, also driven by irrigation. Waipakarau is certainly the hub of Central Hawke's Bay, but it too has taken a hit, and largely since 2007 as a result of subsequent droughts. At the peak of the 2013 drought, I was in the office of a businessman in his 60s and had been in Waipak all his career. He said he had walked outside the shop one morning, looked up and down the main street and saw not one person walking on the footpath, and said that he could never recall that ever happening before. He knew what strains were on the community at the time, and that was flowing through to town businesses. I've been a cropping farmer in the past, under dry land, but no longer due to the variable climate. Costs increased through the 2000s and made the yields required needing to be so much more reliable. Droughts meant yields fell short of covering costs, and while I stuck it out through a couple of droughts, 4 to 5 in succession meant it wasn't sustainable. This meant no agricultural contractors employed, no spraying contractors, no seed or advice from local farm stores, no truck transport needed. While you can appreciate the gain or benefits you can see from the dam, it's also to see what we can lose if we do nothing. A large part of the debate around the scheme has been the economy versus the environment. CHB District Council is spending $6.9 million to upgrade its wastewater scheme to consent conditions. How do people expect the ratepayers to pay for such infrastructure if incomes are low or stagnant, and the current population age is increasing as our young people move out of the district to find better opportunities? Property prices have also been stagnant and have not yet recovered from their 07 peak. In real terms then, you could say income and wealth has been decreasing, yet money has to be borrowed to look after the environment. This is not sustainable because we need both the economy and the environment to be doing well. The Tukituk plan change decision is there to look after the environment. If we set the conditions now, we have the benefit of doing what we know is right. That's not to say agriculture won't continue to research and reduce its impacts. As a sheep and beef farmer last year, I paid around $10,000 in levies to beef and lamb, albeit a low figure due to the drought. These levies from farmers go towards research to help with current issues, and the environment impacts are certainly high on the agenda at the present. One Hawke's Bay dairy farm business pays around $97,000 in levies to Dairy NZ. The difference highlights the profitability of the sectors, the two sectors, but also shows the higher ability they have with funds to research solutions and improvements. Just as dairy farmers know they can't stand cows in rivers now, and beef farmers realising they have to fence off lower lying streams, also our councils are having to upgrade their infrastructure. The day we realised it is not right for Waipak to pour partially treated sewage into the Tukituk or Napier City into the sea, did we stop them doing that overnight? No, new methods and funding were all researched before making the final decisions. I implore you to think seriously about the overall return to making this investment before you decide. The benefit to the river from increased and flushing flows, the benefit to the local and regional economy from increased jobs. If there is a better alternative, then put it on the table. Otherwise, let's not accept the status quo, because that's not sustainable. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Questions? Councillor Barker.
Thank you for that, Will. A passionate and heartfelt presentation there. I appreciate it. I'd like to ask you a question, and that's concerning the circumstances in which the council should make its decision. Do you believe that this council, in making its decision whether or not to invest $80 million into the Ruataniwha Water Storage Scheme, should apply the highest standards of fiduciary duties, and should the regional council have in front of it a complete business case and complete business plan with all of the numbers updated, the latest possible information, and should the councillors assure for themselves that the 40 million cubic metres, which is a condition precedent, for example, is guaranteed to take and guaranteed to supply, that they be unconditional contracts?
I don't disregard, I guess, the other processes going on at the moment. So sure, we need to hit the 40 million cube target. We need other investors to come on board. We need the EPA to be a workable consent for those farmers to take up those water contracts. I guess I just see this as a separate part of the whole process, and just one of those things that needs to be ticked off. And I guess the difficulty I see is which comes first, and it's always hard because they all interact, and I guess that's why they're all being done at the same time.
Thank you, Councillor Scott, then Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Foley, for your submission. You've followed this process fairly closely throughout it. Do you believe the council has had sufficient information to make an informed decision?
I guess on a couple of occasions I've heard that as a result of this process, the Tukituk River and catchment is probably one of the most researched in New Zealand now, and so yeah, based on that, I think the council has done a great job in terms of getting to this point, having the vision to come up with this project in the first place, and just getting to the point we are now. I believe the council's done a great job.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Will. That was a really excellent submission. I enjoyed listening to you. So Plan Change 6, the draft's out, and I presume you've had a look at it, and currently recommending a dim limit of 0.8. There's a little confusion around whether that's to be done today or be done, whether it's a aspirational thing down the track. If it was the 0.8 and it wasn't to come until 2030, so though it was aspirational till then, could you guys live with it?
It would certainly be better than I guess making it 0.8 as a limit from day one, because that's obviously not workable. We're above 0.8 now. The dam certainly wouldn't go ahead, and we'd have to go backwards in terms of what we're doing right now to alter that measure in the river. In terms of looking out, I do believe the work and the research has been done to either limit or mitigate our effects in numerous areas. In terms of time frame, I'm probably not qualified enough to tell you whether 2030 would be far enough out, but certainly any aspirational target out to a date later in the future would certainly help.
Right, further questions? We've got 10 seconds very quickly.
Thanks, Will, and I apologise for not recognising you before. It's because you've got the time. You're probably aware that there are 4 conditions precedent that we have to be satisfied about before we proceed, and you've actually mentioned 2 of them, a workable resource consent and the 40 million cubes of water sign up. There are 2 others, which is a workable construction contract, and the other one is getting an appropriate investor mix, with appropriate returns to the regional council on its $80 million. Are you satisfied that those 4 conditions precedent are the appropriate ones for us to consider?
Yes.
Thank you. It's a succinct answer to finish with. Thank you very much, Mr. Foley, and thank you for your submission and your presentation. Thank you. Okay, Simon.